Latino Americans by Samantha Cisney, Juliana Correa, Scott Ramos, and Carlos Delgado. Latino Americans have a widespread diversity when it comes to the history, as they come from indigenous cultures, European colonization, African slavery, and global immigration, which makes it difficult to describe the characteristics of its people with a specific ethnic category or identifier. As you can see here, there is a variety of physical features within this group of Latin Americans. Latin America is generally understood to consist of the entire continent of South America, in addition to Mexico, Central America, and the islands of the Caribbean. The people of this large area shared the experience of conquest and colonization by the Spaniards and Portuguese from the late 15th through the 18th century, as well as movements of independence from Spain and Portugal in the early 19th century. Beginning with the 1492 arrival of Christopher Columbus in the Caribbean and continuing control of vast territory over 3 centuries, the Spanish Empire would expand across the Caribbean islands, half of South America, most of Central America, and much of North America, including present-day Mexico, Florida, and the southwestern and Pacific coastal regions of the United States. Today, Latin America is made up of a total of 33 countries and dependencies spread across the Americas. The total area of what is defined as Latin America stretches across 7.142 million square miles. While official numbers are difficult to come by, as different regions hold their official censuses during different years, 2015 estimates put the population of Latin America at 626,741,000. Immigration from Latin America and the attendant growth of the nation's Hispanic or Latino population are two of the most important and controversial developments in recent history of the United States. Expanding from a small, regionally concentrated population of fewer than 6 million in 1960, just 3.24% of the U.S. population at the time, to now a widely dispersed population of well more than 50 million, or 16% of the nation's population. Although there are many ethnic groups found within a culture, Latin Americans have a top main three, which consist of Puerto Ricans, Cubans, and Mexicans. Latinos are very religious. Compared with the public, they are more likely to claim religious affiliation and attend religious services more frequently. There is a wide range of beliefs among Latinos. As you can see, the majority are Catholic. Religious affiliation among Latinos varies by immigrant generations. Latinos are predominantly Catholic, but there is a steady decline that comes with each new generation. Latinos as a group are religiously observant. Compared with the general public, they are more likely to claim a religious affiliation and to attend religious services more frequently. Overall, religiosity is highest among immigrant Latinos and lowest among those who are third generations. Here is a breakdown of the affiliation. Latinos consist of 55% Catholic, 22% Protestant, 3% Christian, 18% unaffiliated, and 2% other. Here is a slide showing the variations in religion through the generations. The Catholic religion is declining, while other religions are gaining more Latinos. As you can see, foreign-born and first-generation Latinos are more Catholic than second or third-generation Latinos. The Latino population is at 22.7 million as of 2018. Out of those, 47% identify themselves as Catholic, which has decreased since 2010, as 67% were identified as Catholic. This also goes to show that Latinos are moving away from the Catholic religion and moving to Protestant and evangelical religions. There are several differences when it comes to beliefs and religion. As you can see, unaffiliated Hispanics are less likely to attend services or pray daily, whereas affiliated Hispanics have stronger values such as social, political, and religious beliefs based on religion. This also shows that Latinos are becoming more conservative. As of 2016, 64% of the Latinos identified themselves as Democrats, with 24% of the population identifying themselves as Republican. It is estimated that about 50% of Latinos will vote Republican in 2020. Holidays are big when it comes to Latinos. They have big celebrations with lots of people and food. Latinos celebrate some of the same holidays as we do, such as Christmas, Navidad. However, we are only going to go over a few less common holidays that span various countries. Some of these holidays are Dia de las Velitas, which is celebrated in Colombia on December 7th. Noche de Rabanos, or Radish Night, a century-old celebration held every December 23rd in the main square in the city of Oaxaca, Mexico. The parranda is a Puerto Rican tradition that starts in December and can run into January. It is celebrated in Cuba and Puerto Rico. Misa del Gallo, or the Rooster's Mass, is celebrated in Venezuela at midnight on Christmas Eve to mark the birth of baby Jesus. The novena is held during December 16th through the 24th and is a series of 9 prayers for 9 days. Año Viejo, which is held on December 31st and is popular in South American countries. Customs are a very big part of the Latino American culture. Although there are several, we have pointed out a few, such as a quinceañera. This is a special Latino American tradition where a young woman who turns 15 is celebrated for her transition from childhood to adulthood. Some of the foods that are found in Latin Americans' customs are tacos, tamales, empanadas, and churros. One main thing Latino Americans have in common is the Spanish language. Latino Americans also tend to be very close to their families. Latino Americans also came from an origination of known discrimination. This consisted of being segregated in schools and being under the constant pressure to become American. Some of the punishment for the children in the 1960s for speaking Spanish in school was being hit with a paddle. Also, teachers would ridicule students that brought burritos or tacos to school for lunch. They also ridiculed kids that spoke English with an accent. There was also a group of law enforcement called the Texas Rangers. They were given free rein over the treatment of Mexican and Mexican Americans, and as a consequence, beatings, lynchings, firing squads, and dismemberment were common. Mexican Americans were denied higher paying jobs. They were also arrested for being Mexican American, and 3.8 million were deported without due legal process. For Cuban Americans, they were disliked by African Americans because they were fighting for the same jobs. African Americans would constantly vote against them in politics. As for Puerto Rican Americans, if they were darker toned, they were denied higher paying jobs and also had longer jail sentences. Studies have shown that 20% of Mexicans are uncomfortable with the color of their skin. 25% say they've been discriminated against because of their appearance. 55% recognize that there is discrimination based on skin color. And 23% admit they would not want to live with a person of a different race or culture. In a similar study in 2016, the National Autonomous University asked whether skin color influenced the way people are treated. 51% of respondents answered yes, with 33.4% replying yes in part. Among the study's respondents, 72% agreed that racism exists in Mexico, and 47% said Indians don't have the same job opportunities as other Mexicans. Cubans were also very discriminatory toward the Afro-Cubans. If you were darker skinned, you were treated less than and were a lot poorer than the others. Again, Puerto Ricans are also very discriminatory towards others with a darker skin tone compared to them. Many will admit they have Indian or white ancestry, but many will deny they have any African. Mexican Americans have adapted to discrimination by fighting for better working conditions. They are also getting more involved in the political systems to try and make conditions better for them. Cuban Americans try to not let it affect them. They have many people in the political area despite the negativity towards them by African Americans. As for Puerto Rican Americans, they often campaign to become a state of the U.S. so they can get the correct representation politically. They also try and get more involved in matters that affect them rather than just sitting back and staying silent. One of the major laws placed on the Latino Americans is known as the SB 1070. In 2010, it was signed into law Senate Bill 1070, aimed at preventing illegal immigration that has significantly affected the Mexican bordering state over many decades. This gives enforcement officials ability to enforce existing federal immigration laws in the state by checking the immigration status of a person they have reasonable suspicion of being in the U.S. illegally. Cesar Chavez was born in 1927 in Yuma, Arizona to immigrant parents. He was a dynamic social activist who drew attention to his cause through boycotts, marches, and hunger strikes. In 1939, he moved to California with his parents to go work in the fields. In 1952, he became an organizer for the community service organization that worked for California civil rights. Chavez created the National Farm Workers Association in 1962, which made it possible to get paid better and have benefits available to farm workers. Chavez was also responsible for legislation enacting the first Bill of Rights for agricultural workers. A major turning point was in 1965, when the fledgling Farm Workers Association voted to join a strike that had been initiated by Filipino farm workers in Delano's grape fields. The strike ended up lasting 5 years and resulted in a victory for the field workers. Within months, Chavez and his union became nationally known. Some of the awards that Cesar Chavez acquired during his lifetime are the Jefferson Award for Outstanding Public Service Benefiting the Disadvantaged, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and the Paysom Terrace Award. Dolores Huerta has worked to improve social and economic conditions for farm workers and to fight discrimination. To further her cause, she created the Agricultural Workers Association in 1960 and co-founded what would become the United Farm Workers. Huerta stepped down from the UFW in 1999, but she continues her efforts to improve the lives of workers, immigrants, and women. She co-founded the National Farm Workers Association alongside Cesar Chavez. The two made a great team. Chavez was the dynamic leader and speaker, and Huerta the skilled organizer and tough negotiator. In the 1970s, Huerta coordinated a national lettuce boycott and helped create the political climate for the passage of the 1975 Agricultural Labor Relations Act, the first law to recognize the rights of farm workers to bargain collectively. In 1998, she received the Eleanor Roosevelt Award, a year before she stepped down from her position at the United Farm Workers. In 2002, she received the Puffin Nation Prize for Creative Citizenship. The $100,000 award provided her the means to create the Dolores Huerta Foundation, whose purpose is to bring organizing and training skills to low-income communities.